So when I went to Top Gun, and I'm not talking about this Top Gun, okay, but the actual school, one of the things that they said to us, the commanding general walks in and he sits there and goes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Top Gun. We are here to teach the teachers. Our responsibility is to give you the best practices and lessons learned that have been gathered and collected, and then your responsibility is to go tell everybody else out at the bases. Because in 1969, when Top Gun was founded, prior to that, we had a 12-to-1 ratio in air-to-air combat through World War II and through Korea. In Vietnam, it went down to 2.5-to-1. If we want to change that into business terms, do you think that's good for a business? No, not at all. So they founded Top Gun because what they figured out is that if we could share the lessons learned and best practices of the pilots who had already been in combat, we could increase experience and accelerate learning at a hyper rate. And then we could be much more effective. Think about that within your own organizations. Best practices, lessons learned. This is not the first time somebody has tried to do what you're doing. Somebody's done it before. Somebody's either been successful or they failed. But what are the things that you can learn so that when you develop your action steps, you can incorporate those best practices and not have to figure out that the candle is hot by burning your own finger first? So now we develop our action steps. How do we do that? Well, they are very specific, just like everything else. Have you noticed everything's very specific? Okay? Not a lot of wiggle room. So let's say who is going to do what by when. A specific name doing a specific activity at a specific time frame or within a specific time frame. So as an example, and this is formatted basically on those sheets that you have in front of you, who account managers are going to do what? They're going to contact leads and they're going to do it every week. Is that good? Yeah, okay, yeah, no, why? Yeah, there's no number, there's no date. We didn't even quantify what it is. So I tell you what, let's change this. And by the way, who's holding the account managers responsible? Are they just going to hold all themselves responsible for it? No, so we're going to change the who. We're going to say the sales manager, because that individual is the single point of accountability. Doesn't mean he or she is doing all the work, but they're the one that's going to make sure the work is going to get done. Is going to ensure that the account managers, and maybe this number's low, so forgive me on it, all right? But they're going to contact 25 qualified leads every week. Is that a little better? But do we all know who our sales managers are if we have one? Yeah, so let's just put a name on it. Specific person, specific activity, specific time frame. Sarah, that's our fictitious sales manager. She's going to ensure that the AMs contact 25 qualified leads each week, and Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is the drop dead. That's where we draw the line in the sand, and you either did or you didn't. Nice and simple. By the way, when you go to the debrief, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, it makes that debrief so much easier because you either did or you didn't. Here was the goal. Okay? And oh, by the way, if you're doing these plans in a group session where that account manager is part of that planning session, now you get that buy-in. They are part of it. And they won't allow themselves that wiggle room as well. But does anything go ever exactly how we've planned it? No. Because executing a plan as it's written is very easy. So that's why we always plan for contingencies. There are those what ifs. As a fighter pilot, what if 16 enemy aircraft showed up instead of the 4 that the intelligence officer said they had? What if I got to the target area and it was different than briefed? What if on the way home, a storm rolled in? Have I considered that? Do I think about where my alternates are? Where else I'm going to go land? What else I could possibly do? And your world, what if a competitor suddenly starts, they lowball your offer? How are you going to handle that situation? Are you going to follow them down, or are you going to compete on value or something else? What if you can't generate new leads, or you fall behind in the sales projections? What if the customer suddenly pulls their demand or increase their demands or pulls their PO? What are you going to do? How are you going to handle that situation? The reason why we plan for contingencies is so that we can respond rather than react. There is a difference between the two. When I was flying the F-18, if one of the engines caught on fire, what would I do? I'd shut down that engine, I'd hit the fire extinguisher ready light, I'd hit the fire light, and I'd put the hook down. By the way, that's where all those switches are. Okay, I could do it with my eyes closed. So I didn't freak out. Then I would sit there, what engine is it? What systems are affected? Where's the nearest runway? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's so we could immediately respond and not react, which is, oh my God, oh crap, now what do? I got to do something. And when we talk about contingencies, we spell them out. So as an example, customer pulls the PO. Well, who's responsible for that? Probably the account manager, because that's their customer. They're going to discover the reason. They're going to contact Susan R., who remembers our sales manager. They're going to develop a plan and re-engage the customer, and they're going to do it within 1 business day, if not sooner. So now if a customer pulls a PO, it's like, damn it happened again. Boom, 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 things happen right away. Make sense? Yes, no, maybe so? Okay, vertical head nods? Okay, good. But sometimes we can fall in love with our own plans, and sometimes we can't see the forest through the trees. Remember I talked about those inferences and those biases that can creep in? So that's why we always incorporate what is called a red team review, okay? And a red team are our workplace counterparts, other members of the producers club, people with different levels of experience that are familiar with what we're doing, but they weren't in that room when we came up with the plan. So they're not biased by all the discussions that already happened. And we sit those individuals down, or we call them on the phone, or we send them our plan and we go, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is my objective. Here are the obstacles I thought about. Here are the resources. Here are the action steps, my contingencies. What did I forget? Now, if you're on the red team, you don't sit there and go, hey, Bob, you know what? Your plan sucks. Thank you, that was a joke, okay? They're gonna keep coming, I know we're in the witching hour, all right? No, you really just gotta ask 2 questions, which are these. Have you considered, or did you think of? Have you considered ABC, or did you think of X, Y, Z? It's kind of a polite way to go, hey buddy, you might have missed something. And maybe you did. Maybe you already did and you discounted it. Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure because I didn't hear you talk about it or it wasn't written in the plan. But every time I have done this, either individually in the military with those plans or all the consulting work I have done with other organizations, I have seen plans change because someone said, hey, have you considered this? And it was like the light bulbs went off. And most of the time it was something that would have really affected the outcome, okay? And then once we've done that, we can refine the timeline, all right? And we're gonna add some checkpoints and decision points. Don't make up a plan that has an end date at the end of the year and stop there. There are checkpoints or decision points that we have to look at to determine whether we are on schedule, we're behind schedule, or we're ahead of schedule. As a fighter pilot, are we winning, are we losing, are we neutral? If we're winning, I'm gonna keep doing this. If we're neutral, all right, I'm gonna keep an eye out. All right, there's some things I wanna do to win, but if I'm falling behind, I need to change something now. But I don't wanna wait till December 30th, 2020 to go, oh, guess what? I wasn't getting those MRR customers that I thought, well, you can't change it then, okay? You could put the first quarter, you could put it in January, whatever your operating sequence is, figure it out and go, these are the times I'm gonna take a time out and go, is this headed in the right direction? If you ask it every day, you're gonna burn people out. But you gotta give people time to execute and then go, okay, are we headed in the right direction? What do we need to change? What do we need to continue doing, et cetera, et cetera. There's one thing that we can all agree on is that all things change, which is why planning is iterative in nature. Don't just create it and put it up on the shelf. You got to come back and kind of keep adjusting it and developing and looking at it. But if the whole team's on board and they understand, then everybody can execute simultaneously together. And then the second one is they got to have checkpoints. You got to have decision points. Now, what I just described is what I would do to plan taking a squadron of 12 F-18s, 250 Marines, 4 or 5 Air Force tankers, and move them from Dallas, Texas, all the way to Maine, to Spain, to Sicily, and into Iraq, execute for 6 months in the country, and then get them home. It is that exact same process. You know what else? That is the exact same process I would potentially use to talk to a customer. What's the goal? What are their needs? What am I trying to achieve? Am I trying to close them right now? Am I just introducing? Now I know we're in sales, right? Sales folks, ABC, always be closing, okay? But if this is the first call and I don't think they want to be closed in the first 5 minutes, I don't want to turn them off, right? So I can use this exact same process to plan out a week, a sales activity, a potential opportunity. And if you look at the sheet that's provided in front of you, this is just a real quick way, an easy way to line it out. What's my goal? The obstacles, the resources are on there, any best practices, the action steps, who, what, when, contingencies, what's the concern, who came up with the concern, and then what we ended up doing with it, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a quick sheet. This could be 3 pages, 4 or 5 pages long. It could be 1 page. All right, but it's just a guide, if you will, to get your mind thinking in that direction. Because believe me, folks, this does work. This process works. And I know you're going, oh my God, this just sounds monotonous. No. Once you do it a couple times, you'll actually start thinking that way. And you'll find that your execution cycle starts getting faster and faster and faster while your competitors are out here doing this. By the way, do you know how long it took me to learn how to do this? Okay. Make sense? Guess what? We're done. We hit our goals. We rocked it this. No, we're not done right now. I still got, it's got time on the clock, okay? But we hit our goals. We achieved our goals. What do? Celebrate. What should we do before we celebrate? Or we could do it while we're celebrating. I've had a bunch of good debriefs at the bar. Yeah, we debrief. Guess what? All right, let me ask this. We failed. We absolutely missed our goals. What would you do? Debrief. You debrief. So why are you only going to debrief when things are bad? Why wouldn't you debrief when they're good? Maybe you got lucky. And somebody did something that you could repeat within your organization across the board. So let's debrief it, capture it, make it part of our standards and our operating cycle and not let that just slip away. Maybe you were just successful because you are and you have a great product and great people on your team, and now you're going to onboard and you have a new individual. Right? Robin was talking about bringing on a new account manager. Bring that individual in the debrief, and they see that the successful, more experienced account, this is what they do. Oh boy, you talk about replicating, increasing learning and accelerating experience at a hyper rate. So debrief your failures and your successes. Now what do most people call debriefs? They call them what? Postmortems? You ever heard of that? Yeah, I never want to go to one, and if I do, I don't want to be alive for it. Okay, that just sounds bad. All right, I've heard after action reviews aren't bad. But yeah, I like the word debrief. Why? Because it's easy to understand. It's only 2 syllables. And if you can spell it, then you will have the debrief process. Now, why don't people debrief? What? They don't have time. How many people don't have time to sit down and hold a debrief? Honestly, you can put your hands up. Okay. How many of you have made a mistake or seen the same mistake repeated in the last 6 months? Okay, how much time did that cost you? Money, stress, rework, failed opportunity, maybe embarrassment, okay? So a lot of people say, oh, we don't have time to debrief, and then they go out and do the exact same thing again. Why else don't people debrief? Embarrassing, thank you. That's exactly what it is. I don't want to admit my mistakes in front of my peers. I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. And as a leader, oh boy, I don't want to make my team think I look dumb. Absolutely not. Why should you debrief? Really? It's a teaching and learning opportunity. The only reason to debrief is not to place blame, but to improve your future performance. A debrief is not going to Chuck E. Cheese and playing whack-a-mole, okay? So when you hold debriefs, especially as leaders, it has to be a teaching and a learning environment. That's how you got it started. We're looking for respectful truth over artificial harmony. I don't want everybody sitting there going, hey, boss, it's great, as the ship is slowly sinking, right? No, tell me what's going on. But you have to build that, and it's responsible of the individuals in this room, the individuals sitting in this seat, to set that within your organization. Now, some people don't debrief because they don't have a process, they don't know how, and it is, in fact, an art form. So what I did is I took the word debrief and I gave you a 7-step process. So like I said before, if you can spell debrief, you can actually conduct one. The first step is decide to debrief. People don't debrief because they just don't put it in the schedule. It's not part of their operating cycle. And that is a crying shame. I debriefed after every single one of my flights as a fighter pilot. Every single one. Some were long, some were short. Sometimes we would land, get out of the airplanes, and on the walk back to the hangar, which is basically here to the lobby, the debrief would be done. It was like, then there was nothing to talk about. Everything went fine. Sometimes they were longer, depending on whether, and even if it was a successful mission, they were, hey, you know what, did we try something different? So it just really depends, but you have to make the commitment. And if you turn over your paper, on the other side of this page is a debrief checklist. And you'll notice right at the top where it says decide to debrief, where are you gonna do it, who's gonna be there, where you're gonna do it, the date, the start time, and the end time. So decide to debrief, fit it into your cycle somewhere. The next step is to set the environment. Like I said, it's got to be a safe environment. And the way that happens is by the leader admitting their mistakes first and then looking for feedback. There's nothing more powerful than standing in front of your team and going, you know what? This is what I did this month or this week. I don't think I really explained this marketing campaign or what I was trying to achieve with this. And I think this is why it affected, or here were some of the results of that. And so that's something I'm going to work on. What do you have for me? What can I do better as a leader? You will be surprised at what people will tell you. Oh, by the way, 99.9% of the time, they will tell you how to lead them better. Is that a great information to have? They will tell you what they need. They just need a forum to do it. When I was an instructor pilot, I had the general of the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing show up to do one of my flights. I was leading it. He's in it. Now, let me tell you who this individual was, and I'll work backwards. His last assignment was an appointment by President Obama to run NASA. Prior to that, he had been the general. Prior to that, he had been a space shuttle astronaut and had done 4 missions. Prior to that, he had been a test pilot, and now he's in my flight. Okay, and oh, by the way, he's my ultimate boss. All right, you talk about kind of being, okay. I mean, I was freaking out about the brief and the flight and everything else. Well, then we get to the debrief part, and on the particular flight, he had made a mistake, and we kind of got shot. And I'm like, okay, now what do I do? Okay, how do I bring this up? I get to that point in the debrief, and before I even had a chance, he sat there, he actually interrupted, and he goes, you know what? This is what happened. That was my fault. This is what I did wrong. And I mean, I was floored. So if the general of the base is willing to do that, who am I not to do that within my own career and with everybody that I ever flew with or led? It was a powerful, powerful moment, but it set the tone throughout the whole organization. That's how he was, and that's why, frankly, our military really does better, is because we subscribe to this process. We have that debrief, and we have that environment set. The next one is brief the results. I have been stomping my feet. Who, what, when. Make them smart. Make them specific. When you brief the results, did we achieve? Should be a yes or no answer. Yes, we did, or no, we didn't. We either got the 2.5 to 500 or 5,000 by that December 31st, 2020, or we didn't. Yes or no. Done. Now you talk about, okay, what happened? Now, generally speaking, mistakes are made by people, right? But there is an underlying reason why that happens, and that's where we get into root cause analysis. You have to ask why at least 3 times, if not up to 5.